Hello, everyone, and welcome to Lost in the Reel. Today I'm going to be talking about the new Mark Wahlberg film, Joe Bell, based upon the heart-wrenching true story about a dad walking across the country for his son. And all I can say before we begin is this movie made a blubbering, crying mess out of me. So, let's talk about it. Joe Bell is directed by Ronaldo Marcus Green and written by Diana Ossana and Larry McMurtry. It stars Mark Wahlberg, Connie Britton, Morgan Lilly, Maxwell Jenkins, and Reed Miller. This is a film based upon the true story of a small-town working-class father who embarks on a walk across the U.S. to crusade against bullying after his son is tormented in high school for being gay. Joe Bell comes from Ronaldo Marcus Green, the director of the criminally underrated Monsters and Men, which starred the likes of John David Washington and Anthony Ramos. That film took hot-button issues of police brutality and systemic racism, and instead of smothering you with its own politics, it took a restrained, thoughtful approach instead, which made the film all the more effective because of it. Joe Bell also comes from the Oscar-winning screenwriting duo of Diana Ossana and Larry McMurtry, who wrote Brokeback Mountain, which delved into deep, dark places about the implications of being a homosexual in this world and trying to hide it. And I must say that this creative team were the perfect people to come together to bring Joe Bell's journey to the screen. Because this type of true story can go so very wrong for a multitude of reasons. First of all, the way in which this story is structured as it goes back and forth in time is so tricky to pull off. But the filmmakers do it in a way that feels effortless, as if all of the moments in the past are like distant memories coming together like puzzle pieces. And the biggest issue in biographies like this is that they use all of the tropes in the book to be emotionally manipulative, which in my opinion is the worst type of film. Instead, this trio have given this story such grace and compassion through an observed lens that never tries to sugarcoat the situation, go over the top, or deify our lead protagonist. In turn, that means that every tear and every heart tug is 100% earned. If you are familiar with this story, which many of you who are watching will already be, the film is still extremely powerful whether you know the story beats or not. Of course, there is a part of me that wished that I didn't know all of what would happen, but at least that made me prepared for what was ahead. If you are unfamiliar with the story of Joe Bell, well, just get ready to stock up on some tissues and have a good hard introspection of yourself after the movie. Now, let's talk about Mark Wahlberg, because despite being a fan of his, the actor hasn't really been shining his star bright recently. Pretty much the only films I can say I've enjoyed him in as of late have been his comedic roles. And don't even get me started on his sleepwalking escapade in this year's Infinite. Ugh. I was really worried the actor would be phoning it in here, and that would have been a travesty with such an important dramatic role like this. But the actor, for whatever reason, seems truly connected to this story and to this real man's plight, and it shows in every inch of his performance. This is the best Wahlberg has been in years, maybe even ever. And I feel like I'm being redundant because I just said that about Nicolas Cage in Pig, but both films brought actors to the forefront who have been almost indifferent in their most recent projects and given them very personal roles to tackle and to grab onto for dear life. And that is exactly what Wahlberg does here. He channels Joe Bell like the man was actually his dearest friend in real life. It's pretty extraordinary. And it would be remiss of me to not speak about Reed Miller, who plays young Jaden. I'm not aware of what Miller identifies as, and to me that matters none, because his performance here is exceptional and feels so very authentic. Every time I thought he was gonna go overboard, he reins it back in to give such a heartfelt portrayal of this young man. What is so beautiful about this film and why it works so well is because Joe Bell is never made out to be a hero. He is a very flawed man with anger issues and a tinge of misogyny in him. And what happens to his son makes him take a good hard look at himself. Although this journey at times is a bit misguided, it's ultimately just as much for Jaden as it is for him as well. Joe Bell's message started out about anti-bullying, which of course is important for all of us to remember that our words and actions have consequences and meaning. But what he had to grapple with on his journey of grief and acceptance is that his complicity and ultimately his silence was the deadliest weapon of all. How many times have I been silent when I should have stood up for someone? How many times have I been silent when all that was needed was my words of acceptance? How many times should I have been silent when it was just important for me to listen? How many times have you been silent because you were too afraid? These were all questions I asked myself during Joe Bell, and some that you might as well. And even though I think this movie could have used an extra 30 minutes to really feel like a more fleshed out epic of a film, which I think this story warranted, this is still such profound filmmaking that is so lovingly crafted. So I will be giving Joe Bell 4 pom-poms out of 5. Do not let the heavy subject material of this true story stop you from seeking it out. Joe Bell is a heart-wrenching and powerful film with outstanding performances from Mark Wahlberg and Reed Miller that will not only send tears down your face, but it will fill your spirit with an unflinching desire to be better. Thank you so much for watching Lost in the Reel. We will see you soon.